seconds. Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. My guest today is Caroline Israel, and it's her birthday, and that is so nice of her to come on her birthday. You know, believe it or not, a lot of guests choose their birthday to come on because it's such a special day, and they want to help people, and so we're going to wish her happy birthday, of course. And to tell you what she's going to talk about is not just a whole food plant-based diet, but how to make it stick. And this is a perfect time of year to make it stick, especially if you're somebody that's stumbling or struggling with making it stick. Please welcome the birthday girl, Caroline. I don't know if I can sing because then YouTube might flag it like it's a copyright, but I'll just say happy birthday.
Okay, thank you. Yes, happy birthday to me. Wanted everybody to know in case y'all didn't get the memo.
Well, you know, you look adorable. You remind me of the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, is that right? The Good Witch? I'll take this off now, though, since everybody knows now. I might have to go have a hair moment. But
no, you look great, though. But you remind me of I think her name was Glenda or Glinda. But
that sounds right. Yeah,
that's who you reminded me of. Well, welcome and thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. In case my viewers are unfamiliar with you, maybe you could tell a little bit about your story on finding a whole food plant-based diet and being able to make it stick yourself. And everybody's saying happy birthday in the chat, just so you know.
Oh, thank you. I love it. When's my birthday? Well, let's see. I'll try to keep it brief. It all started, I became vegetarian back in 1988 when I learned about animals. And I was like, I love animals. I don't want to do that to them. And then shortly thereafter, I became vegan. And so I've been mostly vegan since 1990 or something like that. But I wasn't healthy whole food vegan. I just was, as long as it didn't have a face or didn't come from something that had a face, I would eat it. So but over time I got more concerned about my health, but also, I was addicted to sugar. And it was just a constant struggle starting in high school, where I had to have sugar, and I would try, then I'd want to lose a few pounds, but couldn't quit eating the sugar. And so it was just a huge battle, a terrible battle for me that I struggled with for years. And I guess it was, and I tried a lot of different things, from psychotherapy, lots of psychotherapy, and meditation. And I did so many things. I worked with, eating disorders specialists. I even signed up in an addiction program, an in-house addiction program. So everybody around me was trying to get off drugs, and I was just trying to get off food. And of course I did OA and FA or FAA, I forget, Food Addicts Anonymous, all that. And nothing helped. And then finally back in probably about 2005, I stumbled across Dr. Furman's Fasting and Eating for Health. And because I wanted to fast, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to fast. Of course, I couldn't fast because I was addicted to food, addicted to sugar. But anyway, in his book, he talked about basically a whole food plant-based diet, which he calls a nutritarian diet. And that turned me on to his book, Eat to Live. And then I was like, this looks good, because I'd been trying to be vegan, but I was still eating a lot of vegan processed foods. And I didn't realize that was partly keeping me addicted to sugar. So I started trying to follow Eat to Live, the nutritarian diet. And I was somewhat successful, but it was still difficult. But I did find that when I could stick to it, I was starting to get over my sugar addiction, where I had not before. But it was really when I came across the cognitive behavior strategies for weight loss and weight loss maintenance that really cinched the deal. That helped me when I learned all those tools and strategies. That helped me to so that I could start sticking to the nutritarian way of eating all the time.
I'd love to hear what those strategies are, but I also wanted to ask you, I see so many people for whom the food addiction programs don't work. Can you address why that is for so many people? Because to me, as long as you're allowing in any amount of addictive junk, it doesn't matter if you weigh and measure it.
Right. Yes, I think, yes, another book I read along the way was The Pleasure Trap, with one of your most frequent guests. And that helped me a lot, realizing that it wasn't about my crappy childhood with alcoholic parents or any of those things, or willpower or any of those things. Really, it was that I'm an animal and I'm programmed to eat food. And that, for some reason, that really connected with me about why sweet foods were so addictive for me. And well, of course, then I learned somewhere along the way that it was really not just sugar; it was sugar and fat, the combination of sugar and fat. And I realized that's really true, and that's not found in nature. Apparently, that combination of sugar and fat, and it's highly palatable and exciting. So so that helped me. And why addiction programs don't work, well, first, I mean, if they're in-house, I think it's difficult to, even if you can stick to, this way of eating in a controlled situation, that doesn't transfer to the real world. But I think people don't learn real skills that I try to teach people, very specific skills that they need to, to stick to it for the long term. And I think I said I had four must-do strategies, for sticking to it. So that's what I'm hoping to give people, some concrete things that they need to do to support themselves in sticking to this way of eating.
Right. And you're so right. I'm in the process of completing the interviews of the 40 experts for the Truth About Weight Loss Summit. And I can't tell you how many said sugar and fat were never meant to be in your mouth at the same time.
Right. Yeah. And even now, I mean, I'm not addicted to sweets, but I sure love a good date nut ball. I mean, I notice how when I eat something like that, it really is like pretty exciting in my mouth, but it's not the same as a Snickers bar or something like that. It's not as and I don't find that I'm driven to eat it, but I can certainly overeat them if they're around, and have easy access.
Absolutely. I think everybody can relate to that.
Yeah.
Are you going to have a hyper palatable treat because it's your birthday?
Well, I did on Saturday. Actually, I had a little birthday dinner party, and I made. I love that because then I can, provide food that I want to eat, that I feel good about eating. So I made a super healthy whole wheat crust pizza. Although now I wish I had made a garbanzo crust. But anyway, that's another story. And with lots of veggies, and then I made a cake out of Talia Furman's new dessert cookbook. So that was the first thing I had made out of that, and it was pretty yummy. It kind of turned out very flat, but I still can't figure that out. It was very flat and dense, but it tasted good. So I guess that was the main point.
Well, that's good. I'm so glad. And you weren't triggered to eat the whole thing, right?
No. Yeah. It's so much better than it used to be. God, in the past. I mean, first of all, even though it was delicious, it doesn't have that addictive. I don't find that it's that addictive drive, and I still have some in the freezer. But but I do notice, and this is something I'm going to talk about today. It's in the freezer, and I think about it where I wouldn't think about it. So it's certainly something that is more exciting than the salad that's in the refrigerator, waiting for me for lunch. So yeah, in fact, that's kind of a good segue into the stuff. Should we move into?
Yeah, I'd love, because you said you have some strategies that could help us.
Yes, I have four must-do things. And the first one, I'll ask the question of you and your viewers. What is the biggest determiner of your behavior? What do you think determines your behavior, how you're going to behave?
Well, I'm going to guess your environment.
That's right. It's your environment. And that's what the science shows. And that's what I found to be true. And that's what most people I know who are successful at losing weight and keeping it off find, that, what's in your environment determines what you're going to eat. What you have in your refrigerator, that determines what you're going to eat. What you have sitting on your office desk, that determines what you're going to eat. No amount of willpower or discipline is going to be able to consistently, every day in and day out. I mean, maybe briefly, like you walk by your coworker's jar of candy kisses, maybe you can say, nope, not going to do it. But if it's sitting on your desk or, too close by, it's going to wear you down. It seems to eat away, even if you're not thinking about it. It's kind of eating away at your willpower, and it might even cause you to eat something else later that you hadn't planned to eat. Like, I didn't eat those chocolate chips, so I'm going to eat, I'm going to finish off my cake from Saturday night or whatever. So the bottom line here is keep your house clean. That's kind of how I think about it. Keep your house clean. And if you're going to eat something that's not, what you want to be eating regularly on the whole food, plant-based spectrum, then go out of the house to do it.
I've been teaching that since day one, Caroline. If it's in your house, it's in your mouth. People really underestimate the importance of a clean environment because
Yes.
it really is the secret to success. Because I don't want to tell people if you can't clean up your environment, you'll fail. But I've never seen a person in a clean environment not succeed. And if people would fight harder for the clean environment than they do the excuses why they have to have it, I think we'd have a lot more successful people.
Yes, yes. Yeah, people think that they should be able to, and I think the hope when people come to me for help, I find this over and over again, that there's some hope in there that something is going to click all of a sudden, that suddenly they're going to get it, and then they're not going to desire those foods anymore. The desire is just going to magically go away, and then they're good to go. But that's not reality, unless you have a brain tumor or some kind of weird psychotic experience. That's probably not going to happen, that you just wake up one day and you got it now, and all those other foods don't bother you anymore. So and also the other thing people say is, if they live with other people, of course that makes it harder, and they still think that it's my responsibility to control what I eat. It's not their responsibility. But I try to get my clients to ask for help, and ask for it in a very specific way. Like, either can we not keep that stuff in the house, or at least can we keep, would you mind keeping it in your room, or ask for something very specific so that, you don't have to see it or smell it or all the time. And you don't know where it is, but something to keep it away, because that will make it so much easier.
It will make it easier. We'll make it. And if people could give themselves the gift of a clean environment for 30 days, they'll know what we're talking about. They don't have to fight against the pleasure trap and have it banging on their brain, seeing it, smelling it, hearing it, that other, it's just
Yes.
a thing they could do. And there are people like Dr. Lyle who help difficult families negotiate this cleaner environment if they're willing to have a session.
Right. Yes. Yes. It's certainly possible. I think the thing I run into is people they're kind of embarrassed, for one thing, that they don't have control, over their food. They think they should. They perceive that other people in their household do, which I would propose that they probably don't really have control over it. They just allow themselves to eat whatever they want. But if they really wanted to make a change, they would probably find that this is pretty hard. So.
Yeah. Genetically hardwired to prefer the most concentrated source of calories in the environment. It's not them. It's not their fault. It's the way our brain evolved.
Yeah, I think that it's perfectly natural and even healthy. That's a healthy response to today's food environment, to overeat. I mean, because of our genetic wiring, and programming, that we are programmed to do that, and that makes sense. And maybe healthy isn't the right word, but it's normal. It's to be expected, reasonable. But now, because we have an overabundance of high calorie, calorically rich and nutritionally poor foods, we have to work at it, to so that we can choose healthy stuff. So, yes. You want to move on to the next?
Absolutely.
The next one. So after the environment, that's still the number one. My next one is a food plan. Is making a food plan, and I advocate that people make a very specific food plan. Don't just let it be, I'm going to eat whole plant foods, because when the proverbial shit hits the fan and you're hungry and it's time to eat, and you're like, what am I going to eat? That's when you're vulnerable to all kinds of ideas about what you might eat. So I recommend that people at night sit down and write down exactly what they plan to eat the next day, within the whole food plant-based spectrum. And, write down what you're going to have for breakfast and lunch and supper. And some people might even need to write down what time they're going to do that, because they might find that, around 10 o'clock in the morning, they start thinking about their lunch, or, compulsive eaters might really, need to be very specific about when they're going to eat. And I from my own experience, that has worked for me better than waiting until I'm hungry, because I find that I could kind of be hungry at any time, really. So yes, I encourage people to even make a time and, write down specifically what they're going to eat, and take it from there.
Yep, absolutely. I don't write it down, but I kind of mentally know, you know what I mean? Like, I just like the night before, I have my breakfast prepped. I do it also because it's just easier to have the food ready. And at breakfast, I know what I'm going to eat for lunch. I'm always like one meal ahead of the game.
Yes. Yes, yes, and yeah, now that I've been doing this for a number of years, I have a very regular way of eating, and I don't find that I necessarily need to sit down and write down specifically what I'm going to eat, because I've already got the food in the house. I've got the fruit. I always have fruit and oats for breakfast, and the fruit varies, but the basic breakfast doesn't. And for lunch, I always have a huge salad with beans, and the beans vary, and the sometimes the salad veggies might vary, but you know. But for people in the early stages, I encourage them to pre-decide, decide ahead of time what you're gonna do. Don't wait until you're hungry, because then you are vulnerable, especially when you're tired. When you're tired and hungry, you're vulnerable to making decisions that you might regret later. Especially if you haven't got the food ready and you don't have any vegetables in the house or whatever, and then we all know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Deanna says, I'm an emotional eater, so the clean environment helps me not run to food for comfort.
Uh-huh. Yes. Yes. And at least it makes it harder. I do have clients who have had a clean environment, but they would still go out and get food. But at least that's a step in the right direction. So that I wish that was the end all be all answer. Like, if you just keep your house clean, you're good. But it's not true for everybody.
But more people than not, with a clean environment and healthy food prepped, will not go out. Of course, there's going to be outliers on the bell
Yes.
curve. I really believe that. I also have a saying that when environment is wrong, willpower is of no use. When environment is right, willpower is of no need.
Right. Uh-huh. Yes. And yeah, I think that's true for a lot of people, for sure. And there's other strategies for folks who will go out and do it. So, and one of them is the food plan. So the idea with the food plan is, once you make the food plan, and let's say it's time to have supper, and your food plan says a steam fry of 1 pound of veggies and a sweet potato, or one of those purple those delicious purple sweet potatoes. I love them. So let's say that's on your food plan, but you're like, that doesn't sound good. So, which is, a common refrain. But the idea with the food plan is that, that your goal is to stick to it. So no matter what, because most people's problem is they've gone through life so far, eating what they felt like eating. So here I am, I don't feel like eating, sweet potato and steam fried veggies. What do I feel like eating? Well, how about some cheese nachos or something like that? And my clients say, well, what if I just choose a different, some other vegetables? Well, if you'll do that, but I don't find that people will do that. If they don't feel like eating the steam fried veggies and the sweet potato, really, they don't feel like eating, vegetables, period. So my goal for folks is to make a food plan and then endeavor to follow it, and using some other strategies that are to follow. But if you can get yourself to stick to the food plan, consistently, well, that's where it's all at. And then eventually you might have a little more leeway, like, well, what do I feel like having for supper? Well, see, I know for supper I'm going to have a pound of cooked veggies in some form, so I'm committed to that. So I can say, well, do I want to steam fry them? Do I want to steam them? Do I want to make a casserole? And I'm not going to step off. I'm not going to be eating off the rails here, but I've been doing it for a long time. So yes.
Great. Well, you've been doing it a long time and it works.
Yes, it's definitely worked for me. You want to move on to the third strategy?
Sure. I love when there's bullet points.
Yes, my bullet points. So number 3 is a food log. So after you you've developed your food plan and you've gone through the day, and then I ask people to sit down, and actually they can take their food plan from for that day, and then check it off. What did I eat that was on my food plan, and what didn't I eat that I need to add to this to this food log. And that's actually a time when I have people do what I call an R&R, reflection and revision, where if they ate off their food plan, then what went wrong and what could they do differently? What could they have done differently to help stick to their food plan? So, but the food log is so important for many reasons. I mean, also it helps to keep people honest, and often people say, "Oh, I eat really well," and blah blah blah. But then when they actually keep a food log, they realize, well, I was drinking 2 glasses of wine a day, and I had a half cup of broccoli and along with my macaroni, with my 2 cups of macaroni and cheese, so the food log really helps keep people honest, and And then if
Yeah.
you're going along and not losing weight, then you can look back and see why. You can see, well, yeah, I've been slipping up a little too much here and there, and I need to tighten up the reins and what have you in this area.
There's a saying, what gets recorded gets remembered. And there's research that shows, especially if people are trying to lose weight, that you lose 50% more weight if you log your food.
Yes, I think it is. I think just writing it down, just making a food log alone will help you. You'll drop a couple of pounds or something. So just that is helpful, but it's not enough for most people to actually, stick with the plan. So, yeah. So we have, environment, and then make the food plan, and then at the end of the day, a food log, and then of course a food plan for the next day. And the great thing about doing the food plan daily, I mean, you could technically do it weekly, just on Sunday, sit down and write down your meals for the week. But most people aren't able to think about what's happening the next day. Like they forgot, I had a lunch meeting, so if you can do it the night before, then you can say, well, what's on my schedule for tomorrow? So what am I going to have to negotiate? Oh, there's a baby shower. Okay, I need to think about that. How am I going to handle that? So yeah, that's why I like to do the food log and then the food plan at night. Or in the evening sometime.
Becky wants to know if you wouldn't mind sharing what your food plan is.
Oh, sure. Yes. So for breakfast, I almost always have oats and fruit and flaxseed, and occasionally I'll have a pancake, but that's made with oats. Oats and banana and unsweetened nut milk. So it's basically the same thing, just in a slightly different form. And yeah, 2 or 3 servings of fruit. Right now, I have been getting these ginormous, I was going to show y'all one, if I can get to it, these ginormous, my brick wall there, pomegranates from Costco. Oh my God, they're so good. So I've gotten 4 cases of them, these like huge cases of pomegranates. So anyway, that's what I've been having with my breakfast lately. That and, some apple or whatever else I got at the farmer's market. Then for lunch, I have a giant, huge salad every day, no matter what. And I love my salad. I mean, today I was thinking, oh, maybe I should go out with a friend for lunch or something. And I was like, no, I love that salad. I don't like to miss it. I really don't like to miss it. So it has about a cup of beans on the bottom, and then a pound of raw veggies. I start off with greens, and then tomatoes and carrots and some kind of cruciferous, usually like red cabbage. So it's a giant salad. I mean, it's so big that whenever people have seen it, when I've had people over for lunch, they say, wow, you must have a really high metabolism to eat that much food. And I go, this is only 400 calories. They don't realize that it's mostly air. Of course, raw veggies don't have many calories, and then the beans don't even have that many calories. But and then I have usually some avocado. Sometimes I'll make a nut or seed-based dressing, but usually I have avocado on that. I live in California, so we have avocados all the time. So that's my lunch. And then for supper, I have some kind of 1 pound of raw veggies, and I kind of go through phases. If I make a big pot of soup, then I'll just eat on that, every night. And I try to have a little fat source with it, either the nut or seed-based dressing, because that supposedly helps in the absorption of the phytochemicals, just have a little fat. And I might have a sweet potato or some bean-based pasta, but the main event is the 1 pound of cooked veggies, and that's just how I arrange it. It's not necessarily to arrange your day like that, but I found a long time ago that worked for me. So I have my raw veggies at lunch and my cooked veggies at supper. So yeah,
that sounds kind of almost exactly how I eat.
So yeah, it definitely works, and yeah, I like it. So
it's fantastic. So did we get to all 4? I know.
No, we still have one more.
Right.
So the last one is called delay tactics. And this, I was going to say, this is probably the most important one, but it's not. They're all important. So the delay tactics come into play when you're face to face with your food plan and a craving. So let's say it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm having that 3 o'clock lull, and I start thinking about those brownies in the office kitchenette that somebody brought. Yeah, let's make it real. Let's say I work in a hospital and I'm, in the office kitchenette, and unfortunately they eat horribly in hospitals and they feed you horrible food in hospitals. But that's not the main point here. So I start to have a craving because I'm tired and I know there's some food just around the corner. This is where the delay tactics come into play. The delay tactics could be anything. It could be set your timer for 15 minutes. I'm going to wait 15 minutes, and if I still want it, I can have it. The main point is to avoid eating in this moment, really. And I can hear people saying, well, I shouldn't eat it at all. Yes, I agree. And let's be real. So the point in the delay tactic is to stop the eating in the moment. So I say do whatever you can do to stop the eating in the moment. So it could be I'll set my timer for 15 minutes, or it could be I can always take it home and have it after supper. That could be another delay tactic. And the beauty in the delay tactics is even if you go ahead and eat the food, it still allows you a pause between the desire and the satisfaction of the desire. And the more you practice that, that helps you build willpower over time. And the longer your delays can be. So today it's only 15 minutes. Well, next week I might be like, I'm going to set the timer for 30 minutes this time. Let's set it for 30 minutes. And also a lot of times you'll find that the craving passes. You learn that if there's one thing we know about cravings is they do pass. They do go away whether you eat or not. The craving will go away whether you eat or not.
And sometimes if you indulge the craving, it actually makes it worse.
Exactly. Yes. If you feed the craving, it stays alive, and if you starve the craving, it will eventually die. And there was a great Doug Lyle did a video or a talk about this a while back, and I forget what
the cram circuit, where the extinction.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. If you quit feeding the cram, that desire, that urge, then eventually it does wither away, and your body will quit providing it, or your brain will quit asking for it, because it's like, I don't get it anyway, so why ask for it? So if you can, the longer you can delay the satisfaction of the urge, the better, and that will help you start to whittle that away. But also you're going to find that a lot of times the urge will go away. And I can't tell you how many times I'll be at Costco and they were giving away, little Lindt chocolate balls. So my rule is I only eat while seated. And if I was at Costco, there's nowhere to sit. So I would say, okay, I'll take it. And after my lunch, if I still want it, I can have it. Well, I don't know if I ever ate anything under those circumstances, because by the time I got home or got in the car, I was like, this is awful. I don't want this. It was just that in the moment, it's fun. We're in Costco, they're giving away free candy. It was just kind of that thing in the moment. And so once I got out of the moment, I didn't want it anymore. And never did I regret not eating one of those, there in Costco. And I never regret that. But if I ate it, I would be like, oh, damn it. Now I have that's gross. That's gross. It's not vegan. It's got a lot of sugar and added fat. It's totally not what I want to eat. So
I would recommend, though, that people don't go to places like Costco unless they're got a full belly. Sure.
Well, I mean, but it's chocolate, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well,
it doesn't matter how full my belly is. You can always accommodate some chocolate. So, yes, I mean, yes. And I got to where I would sort of plan my strategies for Costco. And now it's not an issue. I've got the hang of it now, but that might require some strategizing, if you, now that and Costco is starting to have, snacks again. So you might have to plan ahead, like how am I gonna, if that's a big thing for you, that you really enjoy tasting those things, and that's something to plan ahead for and think about how to handle that. So the delay tactics, it can be any number of things. It could be walking around the block. Let me walk around the block first, because often, especially like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon with the 3 o'clock lull, just getting some movement can be enough to shift your energy. And again, every time you can resist that urge, get past that craving without feeding it, it will, as AJ just said, it will die off a little bit, and gradually it'll get much easier. So now I can walk by the Lindt chocolate balls at Costco, and it's not a big deal. The same with like chips at a Mexican place. We have a little place down the road called Taco Temple, and they have a great little taco salad. and it's great. I mean, I just tell them to hold the cheese and hold the dressing, and it's just a corn tortilla and beans and a lot of greens and some avocado. So, but I have to sit there with chips on the table, and that used to be, an issue. So can I share with them how I sort of started getting over that?
Absolutely. And I love what you said, Caroline. People never regret not eating off plan. Never have.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
But they almost always regret when they do eat off plan, whatever their plan is.
Which is good, because that regret motivates change, so it's okay to feel some regret and disappointment, because it's the discomfort that motivates change. And if you just tell yourself, oh, it's okay, that's no big deal, that kind of quells that angst, and you need some angst to motivate you towards some change. But so chips, Mexican or tortilla chips at the Mexican restaurant. The first thing I did was I decided, because I like to know how much I eat. That's one of my things. I like to weigh and measure what I eat. So I said, well, I need to know how much I eat if I'm going to eat some of those chips. So I'm going to count them out. I mean, because I wasn't comfortable taking my food scale, but I could count them out. So I, counted out. I would count out like 10 chips and then eat them. And that was my food plan. That was my goal, to stick to those 10 chips. Now, if I got finished with them, the deal that I made with myself to sort of, because I wanted to eat them freestyle, I don't want to restrict my chips. I said, if I want more after 10, I can have it. But first, I'm just going to count out these 10 chips, and then we'll see what happens. I enjoyed those 10 chips so much more than I enjoyed the free for all. I ate them slowly. I savored them because it was limited, and they were even more enjoyable than when I did it freestyle. And then I think I moved to 5 chips, and after that, and now it's not an issue at all. Now, when I look at those chips, I'm like, oh my God, that's horrible. I mean, those things might actually cause cancer. They're fried, acrylamides, bleh. I mean, now they don't bother me at all, but it just took some practice and some time and regular practice.
That's fantastic. Well, I know people that actually make compliant chips at home and just bring them with them to the restaurant, or just ask for corn tortillas not fried and make their own soft chips while they're there.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. Yes, I've made baked. Yeah, baked, to just cut up the corn tortillas and bake them, and that's certainly what I would do here if I was going to have some kind of dinner party like that. That's what I would do. I've done that actually at the local yacht club. Whenever I've tried to introduce some plant-based eating, we baked a bunch of corn tortilla chips, and a couple of us ate them. But anyway, yeah, I love that idea.
Do you do batch cooking at all for your beans and salads and things like that?
Well, I make a pot of beans about every 5 days. So, I've got an Instant Pot. So I'll make, a different bean, and they last about 5 days, so that's probably the biggest batch thing I do. And if I make a pot of soup, it'll be a pretty big pot of soup. So it would last several days. And sometimes I'll freeze a little bit of it. My salads, no, I just chop up the salad every day. I don't really mind. I've got it pretty streamlined. But I love that idea. I think it's great, and it's something I recommend to my clients who either don't like cooking or don't have much time, especially in the middle of the day. So I would definitely say, yeah, make that salad ahead of time and just have it ready to go. And that also helps with urges like, oh, I don't feel like a salad. But if it's already made, that's just another hurdle that they have to get over, to actually jump ship. I mean, they're like, well, it's already there. It's right there. Do I want to waste that? So it's another encouragement. There are so many strategies. And I think the key to me is that it requires a lot of strategies. There's not just one thing for most people. Again, you're not going to wake up one day and be like, oh my gosh, I've got it. I no longer desire all these other foods. But if you can put together a lot of these strategies over time, they will gradually get you where you want to be.
You said your clients, so tell me what you do, because I know you call yourself Tastebud Rehab.
Yes, Tastebud Rehab. Yeah, because that's the biggest thing I hate is people. I'll tell them how I eat, and they say, "Oh God, I could never eat that way. I would really miss blah blah blah." And I always tell them, most Americans are just a few weeks away, or maybe 3 months away at the outside of loving the way I eat. And then I'll describe the little, which I might have gotten from Doug Lyle, the little chart where, we have a certain level of enjoyment of our food. And if you, if you eat regular standard American food, and then I'll say overnight you went whole food plant-based, where your pleasure would drop precipitously. But over time, over the next few weeks, it would gradually come back to right where you started. I mean, you started here eating at McDonald's and you finished here eating whole food plant-based. So most people don't realize that can happen, and your taste buds adjust to whatever you eat regularly. So yes.
It's so true. If they stop all the sugar, fat, and salt, and they stop insulting their taste buds, whole natural food can taste really delicious.
Yes. I mean, I love my food. I love my food just as much as the next person, but that wasn't always true. I mean, I grew up eating a Southern diet, and I probably didn't have, a vegetable that wasn't deep fried or smothered in Thousand Island dressing until I was in my 20s. And it tasted really weird, vegetables and natural unadulterated vegetables. But over time, as I introduced more veggies and less of the other stuff, I mean, even when I went vegetarian back when I was 20, again, I was just trying to find fake, cheese substitutes, and I wasn't trying to eat vegetables. I did eat fruit though. I grew up eating fruit. So that, I guess that was good.
So Amber says, what was the fourth strategy? Maybe just quickly go over all four again.
Yes. Number one, the environment. So, keep your house clean and try to keep your office area clean from distracting foods. Number two is a food plan. At night, sit down and write down a specific food plan for the next day. And then at the end of the day, write down what you actually ate. Hopefully it was what was on your food plan, but if it wasn't, that's okay. But let's keep a record, write it down. And ideally, you would, if you ate off your food plan, say, well, what happened there? And how could I handle that differently next time? And number four is delay tactics. So, it would be good to come up with a list of delay tactics that you think you would use, whether that's setting your phone at 15 minutes, or walking around the block, or, you could even do some push-ups or jumping jacks, or, call a friend. Any number of things just to delay the satisfaction of the urge. And see what works. And it's not going to work every time to stop the eating, but that's not the only goal. I mean, that would be the ideal goal, that you just don't eat it. But again, even if you wait 15 minutes, that's something, and you can build on that.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it's like building a muscle.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, a lot of the doctors talk about that. Even Dr. Roger Gould, who's considered an emotional eating expert, wrote a book called Shrink Yourself, and he calls it the pause. You just have to create that pause.
Yes, it's so important. And people get I think partly because they're thinking, oh, I just shouldn't eat it. I shouldn't eat it. And that allows, that's not very soothing or calm inducing. And they just want to eat it and get it over with almost. So I just try to encourage them, kind of work with your lizard. I think of it as the lizard, that part of the brain, that ancient part of the brain that wants to eat high calorie food when it sees it. Let's negotiate with the lizard and see, don't let it doesn't have to have everything at once immediately.
Right. So I have a couple of questions in the chat for you.
Okay.
Let's see, I'm trying to get them in the order they were received. There was one about here from Kathy. Can you ask Caroline what her strategies are for shopping and what are her pantry basics?
Strategies for shopping. I'm not sure exactly what she means by strategies for shopping, but maybe she just means, what do I buy when I go shopping? Do you think?
Or maybe like if you see non-compliant food. And
sure.
I'm just guessing. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So my strategies, well, what happens? Well, one thing is I do every week, I go to the farmer's market just down the street here, and I buy most of my veggies there. So there's no, well, there are some sort of non-compliant foods. There's a bread person and somebody with, there are some things, but they're kind of at the end. I just don't go down there, I don't go down to that section. And that's probably true when I'm shopping. I also shop at my little local place called Sunshine Health Foods. And I don't, that's interesting. I mean, I know in the past, and I know a lot of my clients are like, oh, I had my list. And that's one thing, is to have a list, know what you're going to buy. Don't just wing it. Make sure you have a list about what you're going to buy at the store. And if there are certain aisles that are difficult, I would avoid those. Like I wouldn't go over to the pastry area at Whole Foods, or to the prepared food section for that matter. There's nothing over there I should eat anyway. So avoiding those areas. And my pantry staples, well, I mean, the main thing I have in my fridge is vegetables, and I keep my cooked beans there, and some unsweetened soy milk. Also dog food. I cook for my dogs, so that takes up a fair amount of room in the refrigerator. And now my cats, two of my cats love lentils. So I'm going to start transitioning them over. Actually, they're eating vegan kibble right now, but I'm going to start, I ordered the Veggie Cat supplement. And they love lentils so much. I figure, why should I deprive them of lentils? But what else do I have? A lot of dried beans. I'm trying to think, I have some nuts and seeds, some dried fruit, not a lot, I don't eat a lot of dried fruit, but I might use it occasionally for one thing or another. I'm just trying to picture I've got some spices, some herbs and spices in there. I mean, the main thing I buy regularly is vegetables and fruit. And I always tell people they want to learn how to read a label. And I say the easiest thing is just don't buy anything with a label. If you don't buy anything with a label, you don't have to learn how to read it. Because they still, even my clients, and I have a good friend who I've worked with a lot, and he still, every time he buys something, I cringe, because he just looks at the nutrition panel. How many grams of sugar or salt does it have? And I say, well, that's only, that's only a small, you should be looking at the ingredients. That's really the way you should look at it, is ingredients. But anyway, does that?
Yeah, that's funny. If you don't want to, you know how to read a label, don't buy anything with a label. I love that. Okay, so I see a question from Mandy, which is your food plan and food log two separate books, or do you keep them together?
Well, how I do it is I just do it on an app on my computer. So I enter my, food plan for the following day. And then that day, if I didn't eat something or change something out, I adjust it directly on there. So if you're going to actually write it out the old fashioned way, in that thing, what is that called? A notebook, using one of these antediluvian instruments here. I would say write your food plan on one page, and then at the end of the day, you can exit out, say, no, I didn't eat that, and write beside it what you did eat. I mean, that would probably be the easiest way to do it. So you can just have one notebook and one page per day. But really whatever works for you.
Nice.
And whatever you'll actually do, I guess, is the best way to do it.
Elisa says, is your family plant-based?
No, I mean, I grew up and I'm single right now, but the cats and dogs are the six creatures I live with are. But my family was, my grandfather raised cows and chickens and pigs and all that, and he died of heart disease. My grandmother died of heart disease, and the rest of the family, my aunts and uncles, as far as I know, I don't have much contact with them, but as far as I know, they're still in the cattle business. And my mother, now, she actually did go plant-based, but she still not very healthy eater, still was eating a lot of vegan junk food and stuff like that. And our family is definitely vulnerable to heart disease and diabetes and type 2 diabetes. So now she was diabetic for a while, and then I actually moved in with her and took control of the food, and she lost all this weight and became undiabetic. And I was so excited that I actually got to see it. And, it really does happen, but, you got to stick with it.
That is great. There's a great question from Debbie. How do we keep momentum going? I often lose a few pounds and then seem to give myself permission to go off plan.
Yes, that is such a great, and that's what happens to almost everybody. I would love to talk to Dr. Lyle about this, because I want to know, where does that spontaneous, capricious motivation come from that people get periodically? They get motivated and then they lose weight and they eat really well and they exercise or whatever. And then it goes away. And then what happens? They start slowly going back to the old way of eating. And I haven't read any research about that motivation. Like, where does that come from, and what causes it to come and what causes it to go? But that is something that people have to learn. They have to learn how to keep themselves motivated after that motivation goes away. And, to be honest, when people first come to me, they're usually motivated. And I hate that, because it's not real. I know it's gonna fade away. And I almost prefer to work with them when it's faded, when they're kind of not real motivated, because that way, they're going to really learn the skills this time. So, you have to learn the skills, basically, that will help you keep you back, help you get back on track, managing your environment, writing a food plan, and a food log. And even as you find yourself veering off, stick with these things, because they are necessary. I think they're necessary to help you, stick with this food plan for the long haul. And the delay tactics, again, as you give yourself permission to veer off, noticing. Now you'll know that's happening if you had a food plan. So if you had a food plan and then you think, well, I think I've had a salad every day for the last 6 months. I think I should, mix it up a little bit. Well, you'll know, that would be a red flag. Like, uh-oh, I'm stepping off my food plan. And here's another thing I always tell people, that you can always plan to have that tomorrow. And that's another delay tactic. I really want pizza today because I've had a salad every day for the last 6 months. Nobody's perfect, and I can have a pizza every now and then, or some pizza. All kinds of rationalizations in there. You can remind yourself, hey, I can always put that on my food plan for tomorrow. And again, that's a delay tactic. So tonight, when you write your food plan, you might discover, oh my God, no way am I putting a pizza on my food plan because I'm doing so great. And the craving passed. Anyway, I'm over it. But if the craving is still there, then I would say planning, it's not a free for all. So that's another important thing. That's the point of the food plan. So if I was craving pizza and I'm going to write down, I'm going to have pizza tomorrow, I need to be very specific. I'm going to have 2 pieces of pizza from wherever, either make it myself. Ideally, that would be the ideal scenario. But if I'm committed to having pizza from Domino's, I love their pizza, then I'm going to, that might be tough because they're going to deliver a big, huge pizza. I don't know, you would have to do some strategizing. Like, what am I going to do with the rest of this pizza, once I get it and have my 2 pieces. So when you decide to plan kind of off plan foods, not whole food, plant-based foods, I would still highly recommend that it's within certain limits, that you be reasonable, because if you start going for free-for-alls, that's really going to mess up that's going to reinstitute that cram circuit thing. Now your brain says, oh, I like this. The old brain says, this is pretty cool. We're going to provide some push for this more regularly, these free-for-alls. I have a friend who years ago, he was doing so well. He had lost a lot of weight. He was looking so good. And he decided for his 50th birthday to have a free-for-all. And now I don't know how much he weighs, over 200 pounds. And he's not tall. He never got back. He never was able to get it back. He had this free-for-all. Now, technically you should be able to fall off the wagon and get back on, but it can be hard. It's hard. It can be hard to get back on, especially if you have a free-for-all. Did that answer the question?
Yeah. I love that. A free-for-all. I call it a snacksident.
A snacksident. Oh, that's cool. Snacksident.
Yeah, that's funny. Kathy says, how do you package your foods in your refrigerator? I have a tendency for things to go bad because stuff gets lost in my refrigerator.
Oh, that is something that almost never happens in my refrigerator. And it used to, when I wasn't on this way of eating, I would buy vegetables and then they would just go bad. But that really does not happen anymore. I get these little containers, plastic containers, and I have about 6 of them actually, because I like to have, order in there. And I just put my veggies in those things, and that helps keep it orderly and makes easy to find things. And, and plus, I mean, well, I eat, like 3 to 4 pounds of produce a day. So, I know what I have and, what I'm going to eat. And, yeah, what do you do, AJ, for that?
Like you said, I really have never had food go bad, because when I batch cook, I just kind of know how much I eat, and that
Right.
goes in the fridge and then some goes in the freezer. I mean, I think sometimes salad, like on the 5th day, might be a little less good, but I really haven't had a problem with food waste, thankfully.
Right. Yes. In the rare circumstance that something is going to go bad, I would throw it in the dog food. So
Yeah.
that, when I make, I put veggies in their food anyway. So, but, yeah.
That's funny, a cat that eats lentils. I didn't know cats would do that.
Evan Rude loves vegetables. He had a broccoli, broccoli crown, raw broccoli crown on the counter the other day, and before I knew it, he had it on his perch and was eating it. I have a picture of it of him eating raw broccoli. He loves vegetables. I don't let him eat much though, because he will spit it up if he eats too much of the raw stuff. It's pretty funny.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. There's a question from Monarch. What hint do you have for encouraging other family members to try this lifestyle?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Well, one thing is, letting them know that it would be helpful to you, if they were, that's one way they could support you, is by eating that way, at least in the house. But I would probably, if they're open to reading, I would give them a book, one of Furman's books. He's got a lot of different books. And if they have any particular disorders, if they're diabetic, well, he's got one for diabetes. If they have heart disease, he's got one for heart disease. And there's a Disease Proof Your Child. I usually, when I work with parents who have kids at home, I have them read that, because they don't realize that what they feed their kids now is going to set the stage for the rest of their lives. And that cancer starts in childhood. We know that cancer takes decades to actually come to fruition, and probably starts during childhood when you're feeding your kids hot dogs and other processed meats and sugar and donuts and what have you. That is probably what's one thing that is triggering cancers for later in life. So yeah, I'm a big fan of reading or watching, watch Forks Over Knives together, or The Game Changers, or one of those things. It would be good to watch as a family, if they're open to that.
Nice. Thank you. Dina says, is it better to write things down in a food diary or use an app, or does it matter? Is one better than the other?
I don't think it matters. I think it's whatever works for you. I prefer an app, but I've had clients who prefer the old-fashioned way. So I think whatever you'll do is fine. The one good thing about the app, because one thing that sometimes motivates people is calories. So if they can see, like I did have one client who was actually an insomnia client that I worked with for his insomnia, but then he wanted to work on his diet. It really motivated him to put down in an app what he was currently eating, and he saw how many calories it had and how much salt it had, and stuff like that. So, I would say.
Speaking of salt, do you think that helps because if you're following Dr. Furman's plan, it's probably either very low salt or no salt. And I find going very low salt or no salt really does help people with overeating.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have people, of course, they're only mostly eating things that don't have a label anyway, so it doesn't have any added salt, and try to encourage them not to use, add any table salt, and let their taste buds adjust to the natural salt in food that's already in there, or sodium that's already in foods. So, yes.
Let's see. I think I saw a question. Oh, here's one from Jean. Please ask Caroline if she ever has a not so great food that she loves as a treat.
Well, usually I just make my own treats. Like I made, my birthday cake the other day. And it was so cool because in goji berries on top, I put me, my, and mine for my pronouns. I was kind of teasing people about that. Usually I put one year I put mine in goji berries, so that there would be no confusion about whose cake that was. But yeah, I make my own treats, with fruit and nuts basically. And I don't really find that I ever have a craving for anything anymore. I certainly used to have cravings all the time, but so yeah, I just make my own.
Yeah, that's the best. Jackie says, what's the name of your website? She probably can't see it because she's watching on Facebook. I did put it in the show notes, YouTube. Tastebuds Rehab. That Tastebud Rehab. That's a great name.
Yes, as if you only had one taste bud. Yes, tastebudrehab.org.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love it. Wait, doing anything special for your birthday today?
This is probably the most special thing I'm doing. Yeah, I don't really have any plans. A friend stopped by and brought me a couple of things. Actually, a couple of friends stopped by, and because I kind of did my my little birthday dinner party on Saturday, so I'll probably not do anything else. It's kind of not as fun now that I'm 54. It used to be funner when I was like 34.
Well, you look amazing, if you ask me.
Everybody says that. These lines are signs of wisdom, and I said I was plenty wise at 35. Thank you very much. I would have been happy to stop there. That was enough wisdom for me.
I hear you. There's actually a question from Deborah about your lipstick. She loves the color. Would you mind sharing what you're wearing?
Boy, I don't know. I could not even tell you. I think it was an Elf, an Elf brand, mostly a lip pencil, but I really could not tell you for sure. Unfortunately, sorry. I would have to go in there and dig it out.
Oh, it's okay. Well, maybe next time. So Dina says, is there anything else bad that happens if you eat sugar and fat together besides a food craving? Does it do something bad in the body?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, certainly if you're talking about added sugar and added fat, it does all the normal bad things that added sugar and added fat do. I mean, oils cause inflammation of the endothelium, and added sugar, of course, has a whole host of stuff from the AGEs and the Maillard reaction. And I always think of when the body is in a high blood sugar state, that you're kind of rotten from the inside out. But is there any additional horror by putting them together? I don't know. I haven't heard about that. And of course that all those things are not the same if you're talking about fruit and nuts, like a date nut ball that I was talking about earlier. I mean, those things are low glycemic. Even dates, I'm always amazed. Every now and then I'll look it up. I'm like, how can that be a low glycemic food? But it is. Now that doesn't mean you can't overeat on them. I mean, you could certainly overeat on date nut balls. And to me, overeating I would know I overate if I wasn't hungry for my next healthy meal. So, if I had some date nut balls with my lunch, and then for supper, I was like vegetables, blah, then that means I ate too many date nut balls, or the same. Yeah. So they can be overeaten, and I would not use that. I would only use that as a treat, or a dessert to finish off a meal or something. That's not a food to be eaten, as food, even my well-being that Chef AJ, we talked about, I make this product, it's made with beans, fruit, and nuts, but still I want people to use it more as a healthy dessert treat, not as real food. When you're hungry, you should eat real fruits and vegetables and real beans, and then if you need a few extra calories or whatever, after the meal, have some well-being or something like that.
Right. Treats as treats.
Yes, that's right. Treats as treats. Right. I like that.
I saw Karen says, would you mind saying what you feed your cat? She'd love to transition her girls.
I am feeding them, the kibble I feed them is the Evolution. So if you look up Evolution, there's a guy in Minnesota or somewhere up there that makes this cat food, Evolution, and he's got several different ones. I feed him the one with it's made sunflower seeds is the main ingredient, and supposedly it's balanced and has everything they need. You still need to test their urine pH, which I've had some some success and some trouble with, but because their urine pH can get off. And if it does, that could cause stones and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, it's something I've struggled with for years. And I finally, mentally, because of all the stuff about, cats are obligate carnivores. But what I'm coming to believe is that cats are obligate carnivores if they live in the wild. But if they live in my house, I can process the food for them so they can digest it. And Emmeline, my 19-year-old kidney disease kitty, has improved. I'm almost certain. It's like, I think, is that my imagination? But she should have been dead probably at least 6 months ago. And she's going strong for a 19-year-old cat with kidney disease, but she's not dead. And she seems to have improved since I got her off the kidney diet, from Science Diet, which I hated. So anyway, and the dogs do really well. And the other kitties are eating mostly the evolution kibble, but still that's very processed. So that's why I'm kind of wanting to transition them to something I make for them, but I'll probably give them both because I get paranoid that whatever I'm giving them is not going to have enough. So like I give my dogs, when I give them treats, when I do training treats, I use vegan kibble because I'm hoping that if there's anything missing from what I'm feeding them, they're going to get a little bit more of that from the vegan kibble in their treats.
Great. Thanks. Where are you originally from?
Arkansas.
That's what we thought, but sometimes people join late. And there's a question, what do you use for your salad dressing?
Mostly I use just avocado and maybe some vinegar, because I like to have avocado for my fat source in my salad. So that's mainly what I have.
That's very cool. People are saying you look great for 54. Why can't they just say you look great? Why does it have to be for?
No, yeah, really. I know. I'm one of those. I look great for my age.
Right. So there's
I'll
a question.
take it.
Since you're a marriage and family therapist, there's a question. Have you ever had to use any strategies or have people break up because of eating differences or have helped with that situation?
No, I have not. I haven't worked with that many couples, although I would love to because I love working with couples. I love doing couples work, but I could see where that could be difficult, but not unworkable,
Right. Absolutely. Let's see. People love your accent. They love your hair.
Oh, thank you. That's the one good thing. Even though I'm 54, this is, it seems like I get to keep my hair because everything else is going to, I can tell you, but the hair seems to be holding. I think all my resources went into my hair is what I'm saying.
Okay. Here's, I think the last question. Do you incorporate exercise and what do you do?
Oh, definitely. Yes. I'm a big exercise fan. In fact, my bachelor's degree is in exercise physiology. So I lift weights 3 times a week at the gym. And usually I'm actually recovering from back surgery right now, unfortunately. So I'm not doing any cardio besides walking, which I'm not walking very fast. But usually I would be doing cardio 3 times a week, like spinning, or I have this it's like an elliptical on wheels. It's called a street strider, and I love that thing. So it's outside, has 3 wheels, and you do this with the arms, and you kind of pedal. It's standing up with the legs, and so I love that thing. That thing keeps my heart rate. When I had surgery, my heart rate, they kept saying, "Wow, your heart rate's only 48." Should we be worried about that? And I was like, no, I exercise. Have you ever heard of that? Exercise.
Yeah. Well, look, Evelyn's saying you actually had a lot of people at your birthday because really several hundred were celebrating with you.
Oh,
and
cool.
Susanna says, if you're allowed to say, where in California do you live?
Yes, in Morro Bay. Yep.
Nice.
Yes.
If somebody wanted to work with you, just go to your website.
Yes. Yep. Go to my website and you can send me an email.
That is great. Well, it's such an honor spending your birthday with you, and I wish you at least 54 more.
Oh God, I don't know if I want 54 more, but anyway. Well, thank you. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you so much. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back in 4 hours when we have another episode with Shada Soleimani, who lost 120 pounds 10 years ago and has kept it off. That's pretty rare, isn't it, when somebody does that?
Wow. That's amazing.
It is amazing. Well, you're amazing too. Thank you so much. Take care.
Well, thank you. Okay, bye.